I can barely speak. I am so excited. So I hope you are too. So just the usual for how these Zoom calls go. Feel free to use that sweet chat box to introduce yourselves. Please say your name and where you come from, what CLP you're from. And we'd also ask that everyone abides by the normal comradely etiquette in the chat, and to be respectful to one another. Finally, get on your socials. Let everyone know, let all your pals know that you're on this wicked call. You can tag us on Twitter at @MMTM. Nice little mashup of letters. Yeah, that's one for me. Thank you, guys. And hashtag #forward24. So yeah, get on your socials throughout this call and let everyone know that you're here. So enough from me, even though my wonderful Valleys accent is stunning. I'm going to hand you over to Rory, who's going to talk us through some of the work that he's doing in Scotland.
Good evening, comrades. It's so fantastic to be here at the virtual rally tonight. I'm here to talk to you about housing and the struggle that is going on in this country between tenants and landlords. One in which Labour's housing minister, Thangam Debonair, seems excited to take the side of the landlords. Now, I live in Glasgow and I could tell you about raw sewage running into flats due to disrepairs, about the eviction of teenagers onto the streets, or the tactics that Living Rent uses to organise thousands of Glaswegians in solidarity with our refugee neighbours in order to prevent evictions. At the moment though, with everything that is going on, I want to focus on the bigger picture. Yesterday, the government released a public health report which was looking into why Black, Asian and ethnic minority deaths were so high in comparison to those white patients. The report listed one of the key reasons for these high deaths as, and I quote, more likely to live in overcrowded housing. This is something that those of us who are involved in fighting for better housing and against racism already knew was epidemic. Landlords feel they can put BAME people into poor quality housing because society tells them that this is acceptable, that it is okay to treat Black people, Asian people, and other minorities as less than their white counterparts. Housing is one of the areas that we see pre-existing inequalities of race expanded hugely. You know, and we have a small group of people in this country that do not work, that do not add value. In fact, I would say all these people do is extract the wages of us, the working class. And in the same way, many of us say all cops are bastards, we need to be clear that all landlords are bastards too. Individually, they are able to exploit us and make us feel powerless to what is going on in our lives. They're able to remove the sense that we have a home. That is why it is so important that we fight this together. Our collective strength strikes fear into the heart of the landlord class. They hear our shouts outside their letting agents. They see our solidarity on the doorsteps, and it makes them frightened. What we need, though, is to make sure that the tenants movement is linked up and linked in with all the other struggles going on around the country. Struggles against racism, struggles for wages, struggles around health. Because if you don't have somewhere safe to live, you can't work, you can't protect your family, and you are more likely to get ill. Now, more than ever, during this virus, housing is a health issue. You know, we've talked a lot in this campaign about building power in communities, and that is important. And the reason that Forward Momentum is so important is that it is our campaign that wants a momentum that can turn each of our members into organisers, getting members involved with their local tenants movement, be that Living Rent in Scotland or Acorn or the London Renters Union down south. And I won't lie to you, there is a long road in front of us right now, and there are fights on the horizon. Soon, many of the renters that are already struggling will face a wave of evictions as restrictions on landlords end with the phasing out of lockdown. And it is up to us to get organised so that when that moment comes, our movement is there to meet it in full force and ensure the battle is won for working people, for renters and not for landlords. We need a momentum that is going to be there supporting tenants unions in the struggles that lie ahead. And Forward Momentum is the organisation to do exactly that. And one more thing, remember, you wouldn't go to work without a union, so don't rent without one either. Thank you, comrades.
Hi everyone, my name's Callum Bell. I work as a mental health nurse And this has always been a tough and demanding job, but right now it's getting a hell of a lot tougher. On a personal level, I've seen friends and colleagues fall ill who have had to have treatment in intensive care because of this. It's pretty clear to me that the government doesn't care about key workers, or it doesn't care about the patients that we'll look after. But that shouldn't really come as too much of a surprise, because let's be honest, they've never cared. And we can't escape the fact that years of underfunding, privatisation has had on our capacity to deal with the coronavirus crisis. But before we go into that, I want to talk a little bit about the mental health crisis that has been bubbling away for years, that has been perpetuated by COVID-19 and the government's inadequate for mental health during lockdown. Right now, people are struggling to get access to services. And a lot of people can't access talking therapies and can't access face-to-face appointments. The other week, someone who had been waiting 6 months for an appointment to get access to cognitive behavioural therapy. In 2 sessions in there, it got stopped because of lockdown. And there's been no investment to provide over video conferencing calls, and people have had to be left in the lurch because of this. Imagine just the heartbreak and how it would feel after sitting on a waiting list for 6 months, all of a sudden to get access to the treatment that you've been told will help you, and then all of a sudden it to be stopped with no alternative. There's been a push during coronavirus to keep people out of hospital and people in the community to prevent the spread of coronavirus. But little direct investment has been given to crisis teams so that they can provide an alternative to hospital admission. This is leading to staff burning themselves out and trying to cram as many visits in a day as possible. And it's just simply not sustainable. And a major worry of mental health workers is the threat of further cuts on the horizon. Mental health services has always been seen as a Cinderella service. And we've seen nothing from this government to indicate that that's ever going to change. Are key workers really going to pay for the coronavirus crisis? We are still seeing beds closing at alarming rates, caseloads for CPNs growing exponentially, and because of austerity, because of decades of austerity, the wider determinants of health have had a deep-rooted impact on mental health outcomes for everyone, but in particular the working class. And mental health does discriminate across the class system. And although everyone can get impacted by on it, don't get me wrong, it's been working class people that have been disproportionately affected by mental health problems. If you're constantly having to and choose between feeding your kids and putting heating on, an antidepressant isn't going to be the cure that you need. And if you're constantly living paycheck to paycheck with no financial safety net, you can understand why people will become perturbed of having to pay for an unsuspected bill. If things don't change, people will fall through the gaps, more young people will suffer, and more families will have to grieve the ones who have taken their life. We need funding in place so that we can replace the nurses that have left the NHS over the years. We need to invest heavily in mental health services for young people. But it's worth saying that that's only the first step. Although better funding will help the mental health crisis, we can't ignore the fact that capitalism is the root cause of it, which is what makes nursing so hard at the minute. We are trying everything we can do to try and get people to feel better. We can look at medication, we can look at talking therapies, we can simply just be there for someone on a human level during a crisis. But we need a political change to make the real difference. And that's why I got involved in the Labour Party, and that's why I'm standing for Momentum NCG. We can create a movement around and to defend our health workers, our teachers, our social care workers, our firefighters, our renters. I'm going to say how incredibly proud I am to stand on a slate that's packed full of these people. The coalition of key workers and vulnerable people fight back, and Momentum has a vital role to play in this, but it can sort itself out.
Hi everyone, I'm Shonali and I'm based in London. Right now we're all feeling overwhelmed. The structural inequalities laid bare by COVID feel insurmountable. We're reeling from the threat of precarity to our work and our homes. The needless suffering and death of primarily working class people, disproportionately people of colour, is hitting us hard. And of course our communities were left vulnerable to the pandemic because of a decade of austerity, many more years of concerted disinvestment in local industry and public services, the undermining of trade union organising, the hostile environment which has stripped migrants of their human rights, a neoliberal economy which has made profit king, whatever the human cost. The breakdown of trust in parliamentary politics has been compounded by a growing disbelief that change is possible. We saw this in the ever-decreasing Labour majorities in the Midlands and the North, and how that led to so many constituencies turning blue in 2019, despite the most credible plan for green reindustrialisation and a just transition that has ever been put forward to the British public. Voters simply didn't believe it would happen. Now Labour is risking losing another of its heartlands, people of colour in metropolitan centres, with inaction over the institutional racism alleged in the Labour leaks, the ongoing harassment of black socialist MPs, and Labour's shifting position on Kashmiri self-determination. The sheer scale of the challenge that lies ahead is daunting, but we have to keep in mind how fear and division are used against us as a form of social control. There's a reason the Labour right wing tried to block the establishment of the community organising unit under Corbyn. There's a reason why they and the Tories are now undermining the work the NEU are doing to keep not just their members safe, but all of our communities. There's a reason they don't want to see parents standing in solidarity with teachers, tenants self-organising against high rents and poor housing conditions, health and social care workers speaking out about the dire provision of PPE and refusing to comply with the racist migrant surcharge. They know that when we realise our ability to organise and stand together, we are powerful. Where I live, a group of residents, Labour Party members and trade unionists came together to stop Higham Hill Library from being closed by the council. Some had never campaigned for anything before, they just hadn't thought it was worth it. But when they won, they not only saved the library, they exposed the fact that austerity is a choice. And they learned that people have the power to affect change in their own communities. Right now, an awe-inspiring network of mutual aid groups has sprung up across the country in response to COVID-19, established out of a shared desire to support one another and ensure people don't fall through the cracks due to the pandemic. Not with charity, but with solidarity. We have an innate desire to organise in defence of our communities. But Momentum has a vital role in creating a network and providing the infrastructure for this community organising to be as effective as possible. Rebuilding people's belief in their own ability to self-organise and affect change is vital to fostering a shared belief in the power of change at a national level. This is why Forward Momentum have made community and workplace organising a key pledge. We want to mobilise all the energy and ideas and determination of Momentum's mass membership to make every member an organiser, with training, skill sharing and political education. We want to make sure those skills and experience are used to foster self-organisation within communities, the people who understand local issues the best, with winnable campaigns that cut across the mistrust and despair that the hard right have fomented, the racism and xenophobia used to divide us, to reveal the bonds of class solidarity that actually exist. This is how we win, by making political struggle part of our everyday, by making politics something we do rather than something that is done to us. Thanks very much, comrades, and I'm going to hand over to another incredible organiser, Tracy Hilton, who's standing for the Forward Momentum NCG slate in the North West and Wales.
All right, thanks for that. Tracy Hilton for North West and Wales. I'm the Vice Chair of the PCS National Black Members Committee, Co-Chair of Liverpool Momentum and a member of Riverside CLP. I've been tasked specifically to talk about where we stand in Forward Momentum as far as trade unions. You will have seen the amazing policies that came out yesterday, and there's two key parts to that. One is to equip working groups and members to launch and support people in our communities and our workplace struggle and establish a trade union momentum strand. These are two particularly important parts of moving forward. As it stands at the moment, obviously the trade union was basically where the Labour Party came from, but not all unions are currently affiliated to the Labour Party for numerous reasons. But there's a lot of Labour Party members in unions, regardless of whether they are affiliated or not. And we need to reach out with them, and we need to utilise them and get them organised and work with them. It could be we can work for those unions to affiliate with the Labour Party, but it's not possible for all because of political issues for them to do that. But we need to be engaging those union members, some of which may feel a bit disengaged from the Labour Party groups if it's delegate structured and not all member, because they can't actually participate fully in it themselves. We've seen when the community and the trade unions work together that good things happen. This happened in Liverpool when the Merseyside Fire Authority threatened to shut down 2 fire stations on the evenings, and cross-trade unions and the community got together on that, and that got reversed. We saw that when, again, the community and the trade unions stood together to keep the guards on the train. And we see that it has power in our communities when we stand with organisations such as Acorn against unfair rents, when we stand and show solidarity for things such as George Floyd, keep, you know, take to the knee, Black Lives Matters, and an ongoing thing that I'm supportive of about shouting for justice for things like Grenfell, which, by the way, is 3rd anniversary this month. And together we can actually make positive change and push for things to be done here and to improve things in the workplace. The stuff that's been said around housing, as a trade union, we can also push for people to get decent wages so they can actually afford the rents. That's basically, in a nutshell, because I've only got 3 minutes and this is a very long rally. So join a union, join the unions together, join Momentum, the communities, the unions and the Labour Party together, because unity is strength.
Hi everyone, I'm Shona. I'm one of the candidates in the South. Yeah, this is incredible, and I think some of the speakers have made some incredibly important points about we need that grassroots work, we need that campaigning on the ground, reaching out to local campaigns and local communities and those projects so they can see socialism and solidarity in action. Like, I don't think any of us are under any illusions about how bleak the crisis is. I'm a child protection social worker, and I see every day families who are like having their health and happiness drained, sapped away by a system that wants to get away with giving them as little support as possible. But I think, and then there's also the bigger things like the climate crisis, though that's so big and terrifying, it can be too much to think about sometimes. And I think we're all still recovering from the election, to be honest. Like, we all had this narrative around this election and around Bernie Sanders that this was it, this was destiny, it was an underdog story. You know, Jeremy was elected as leader against massive odds and survived the coup, and it was going to happen. And then when it didn't happen, I think we've all experienced this massive collective grief that I think we're all still processing. And then on top of that, we get the Labour Leaks report and we see these despicable, dirty tactics that we sort of suspected all along, but to have it confirmed and just how awful it was, I think it was really soul destroying. And that knowing that if that hadn't happened, we probably would be several years into a Labour government by now. But I think the thing the thing to remember is it can never be about one event or one person saving the world. If we buy into that, that's a very capitalist, neoliberal, individualist myth. You know, it's all or nothing. If you don't win the big fight, just go lick your wounds. You've lost forever, might as well give up. But like Jeremy and John and Diane, you know, they didn't give up through the Blair years, and they wouldn't have got anywhere without thousands of people, if not millions of people supporting them, coming before them, doing the groundwork. And so, you know, we owe it to them, if not to anyone else, but we owe it to them and to ourselves and our communities to keep pushing, because people need us. We're standing at a crossroads on the left. Like, do we stay down and lick our wounds and let Momentum wither away and let the centre split us up or absorb us, let the Ian McNichols of the party win? And do we let a potentially really powerful tool like Momentum wither away? Or do we come together and take this moment and work out what we need and redirect our time and energy and resources toward that? Because there are people who need us. We need each other. There are people on this call who have benefited. I've benefited from collective action, from unions, from renters unions. And we need that. We need to show up to strikes and picket lines, and we need Momentum to do that, because Momentum still has a lot of resources and a lot of power that we can direct toward that. We need to keep pushing the concept of a Green New Deal whenever we can. You know, there's the people who are going to suffer from that most are the people who are the most vulnerable, including many communities in the global south. It is a race issue. These are issues, they're not going away. They're getting more important every year. I was part of the Labour for a Green New Deal campaign, and the incredible growth that that campaign saw. Within just 6 months, it basically taken over Labour Party conference. The youth strikers are still out there, and they need our support, and they need us to be united and to set the narrative around the climate crisis so it doesn't get hijacked by the eco-fascists. The people of this country, in our communities, on our streets, they need us to keep fighting for every inch of ground we can. And we need to be united for that. We cannot ever be in a position where we lose a general secretary role because of a split on the votes for the NEC. That was absolutely ridiculous. We need to be working together, talking to the unions. We need to empower our members so they feel it's worth showing up and they feel it's worth getting involved and putting, and getting out there and doing local activism. We need to support them. It needs to be bottom up. It needs to be proper grassroots organising. We've got more we've got more that unites us than divides us. We need to use our strength. We need to listen to our members. Momentum has a role to play in the left moving forward, and that's where we need to start to make sure that happens and that we take this forward and we take this incredibly powerful, useful organisation forward, and we don't just let it wither away. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Andrew Scattergood and I'm standing in the Midlands and the East. I'm a Fire Brigade Union official and obviously a firefighter. So comrades, we find ourselves at a historic moment for the left. The last few years have seen some of our greatest victories, but they've also seen some of our toughest defeats. Now, we cannot go back to the time when Jeremy Corbyn was our leader, but whilst this is the case, we must not allow ourselves to go back to the new Labour years either. Now, this is where Momentum and you, all of us on the left, have an important role to play. Now, over the last few months, the left have begun the task of picking ourselves up from the general election defeat and Jeremy's unfortunate resignation. But this has been no easy task. But something is stirring at the grassroots of our movement. The left are beginning to organise, debate and prepare for the next few years. We are not lying down. We are organising and we're debating. We're learning our lessons and getting ready for the fight back. We know there are those on the right of our party who would love nothing better than to see all of us leave the party, to give up, to go away and to be silent. But I have a message for those who want this. We are not going anywhere. We are the beating heart of the Labour Party and we are going to come back stronger than ever. Now, the energy that we are now seeing, largely because of the Forward Momentum campaign, is just the sort of thing we need to kickstart us back into action. Momentum has been tumbling into decline now for many months, but it is through meetings with members like you that it is once again showing the promise we all once saw. Now, I'm very proud to speak to you today as a Forward Momentum candidate for the NCG. And I'm very excited to be doing so with 23 other fantastic candidates. We are united, and we are united in one ambition: to rebuild Momentum into a socialist campaigning organisation we all know it can be. And to do this from the ground up, to end the backroom deals and the factionalism that has blighted the left for far too long, to carry on and ultimately achieve what Jeremy started. But as there are those who want us gone, there are those within our movement, within our own party, and even within Momentum, who want to see us fail. They've invested many years in creating a status quo, which they will do almost anything to protect. That is why, if we are to succeed, then we need everyone on the left, everyone who believes in socialism and democracy to join us, to smash the status quo to pieces. We need to stand together. For too long, the Momentum leadership have taken us for granted, treated us as nothing more than a name on a mailing list or a source of funds to use as they wish. And that must end, and it can end with the NCG elections if people like you support us and help us take on the machine. Every Forward Momentum candidate was selected by our comrades, by people in the movement who got involved, had their say, and chose the best candidates that they thought would represent them. I know I speak for all the candidates when I say this. We will not let you down. We will fight as hard as we need to for as long as we need to. It is time for us, the members, to take the lead in Momentum. It is time Momentum was overhauled and the members took control. We must not only change how Momentum works, but also what Momentum does. We must be transforming the Labour Party, winning motions at conference and in our CLPs, building political education so knowledge is our power and the next wave of socialist politicians have the best chance possible. We must be organising in our communities and workplaces, ingraining ourselves in working class struggle, because socialism can't just be built by meetings or even elections. It requires a shift in culture and understanding, and we are the movement that can achieve this. We at Forward Momentum have now laid out what we believe we can bring about this change with. How we refound momentum and transform it into the powerhouse of the left, rooted in socialism and class struggle. How it can be the momentum we know it can be. Now, we've laid out the 5 key areas we believe reflect the change needed. If you elect us, if you help to elect us, these will be our overriding objectives. Unite the socialist left and transform the Labour Party. Refound momentum and put the members in charge. Build power into our workplaces and communities. Give more control to Momentum's local groups, regions and the nations. Campaign for a just and green response to COVID-19. But we are not just a campaign of words. We've started how we mean to go on. We haven't just picked these policies out of thin air. We have spent hours, probably days now, talking with members, debating and involving them in creating the vision and the plan we are confident is needed and wanted. It's a bold vision, but we aren't going into this merely to tweak things. We are going into this to radically change things, and we plan on delivering nothing else. So comrades, the time has come, the time we knew would. It is now time to pick ourselves up and begin to rebuild the left and Momentum into a truly democratic, member-led organisation that is not just capable, but also successful in organising within the Labour Party in our communities. Join us, help us, vote for us. Share what we are about with your friends on the left. Build the hope that we all felt back when Jeremy was elected. And together we will transform Momentum, and the left will be back stronger and more united than ever. Solidarity. Thank you very much.